Mayhem. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Monday, July 1st, 2024, the first day of July. After the show today, leaving on a jet plane, heading towards Chicago. Be at City Winery tonight for a live show, 7:30 Central Time. City Winery, looking forward to seeing you all there. In the meantime, we're talking mayhem because NBA free agency began at 6 p.m. last night. Now, the good news is you're all very well aware that nobody talks to anybody prior. The rules are followed completely. Teams have to figure out who they want, they identify it, and then they wait for the time when they can start their discussions. You can talk to your own players, but you can't talk to other players. There is no scenario under which other players are not speaking to other teams. Normal, the NBA knows it. When they do tampering and they take away a pick or they do a fine, it's when it's so egregious and outrageous. How is Paul George signing with the Sixers already? It's Monday. It's 8 a.m. Do you think they worked through the night? They got together, and in the last 14 hours, they decided, let's really focus. He's allowed to get $212 million over 4 years. The rules make it very easy in basketball. He could stay with the Clippers for like $221, or he could go to any team for $212, but only a few teams have the cap room. Then he has a very important meeting with Joel Embiid and says, oh, I got an idea. Daryl, I think I'll take $212 from you. And the Sixers say, great, no problem. They get together. They fire up the coffee. And then it's announced that Paul George, the number one free agent available, 34 years old, prolific in injury, prolific in production when not injured. So that's a good sign, at least. Decides that his best chance to win a title is to get as far away from James Harden as possible, as far away from the clip joint, because he had such a good experience there. Now, the reason I know he had a good experience in Los Angeles is that the Clippers released a statement telling me that. Otherwise, I would have thought that Paul George and the Clippers were a failed experiment. But no. Paul has informed us that he's signing his next contract with another team. Thanks, Paul. That's super sweet of you. Paul is a tremendous talent, an elite two-way player. Very nice out the door. Not necessary. Are they going to do a video, retire his number? No chance, toilet pants. However, then the Clippers said, we feel fortunate for the 5 years we spent with him. Well, as president of a team or owner of a team, I'm trying to decide what the definition of fortunate is. That's what I've been thinking about since 6 p.m. yesterday. Losing the first round this year, losing the first round last year. Missed the playoffs the year before. That's 3 out of the 5 years. The most recent 3 out of the 5 years, missed the playoffs, first round, lost twice in a row. Now, the year before that, his second year was outstanding. They made it to the conference finals. Whoopee! Year before that, they won a round at least. They lost in the second round. Everything was going great. COVID second round next year, conference finals. We've got Paul George. We're putting him with Kawhi Leonard. None of them ever get hurt. It's all perfect. We feel fortunate for the 5 years we spent with him. Now, do you know the whole bonuses and contract thing where I tell you I can't stand giving bonuses to people for making an all-star team in baseball because every team, no matter how crappy, has to have an all-star? And I don't quite understand when you're being paid 20 or 30 or 40 million dollars, why you get an extra 50 or 100 grand for making an all-star game. But I had to hold my nose and do it in every long-term deal because it was acceptable. Totally fine giving LCS MVP or World Series MVP. I'll give you $1 million. I'll give you $5 million if you win the World Series MVP, because it's not going to be Connor McDavid and the Conn Smythe. It means we're going to win. But we'd like to point out, hi, I'm from the Clippers. I'd like to point out that over his 5 years, he went to 3 All-Star games. And this is really important. This really tells you how great it's been. He made the most three-pointers in franchise history. Who wrote this? Did they get together? It's the equivalent of writing something positive about Biden's performance in the debate. Let's sit around and come up with something. His shirt was pressed. Do you think they had to go through like a bunch of stats and then it got approved by the higher ups? Do you think Larry got involved? Let's put in that thing about the 3-pointers. That'll make people think that it's going well. Do you know what else the Clippers wanted you to know? This is important. Did you know that his performances in games 5 and 6 against Utah in 2021 won't be forgotten by anyone associated with the Clippers? I'm sorry. This is a terrible tone. I don't mean this to be such a bad tone, but if you're the Clippers and you've never done anything ever, literally ever, your franchise has been failing and failing and failing and failing. And Ballmer, bless his soul, he spends money, he loves the team, he's a fan, he's cheering, he's high-fiving. The team has done nothing. You put together George and Kawhi and you expected great things. Nothing. Then, of course, I think maybe Ballmer stepped in and said, if we're going to do a statement, I think we have to acknowledge something. Let's put in there that we traded a lot to pair Paul and Kawhi, and in exchange, we had 5 seasons of contention. Even though we fell short of our ultimate objective, we appreciate the chances we had with Paul. If you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan, here's what I'd like you to be thinking. I'd like you to clasp your hands together. If you're watching on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, clasp them together like you're praying. You're praying to the basketball gods. I don't say pray to God on purpose. Not because I don't want to mix religion and sports. Because we're mixing religion in school. We might as well mix religion with everything because the Constitution never even had a thought about that. So I don't want to mix it. But I want to make sure we're clear that the sports gods, when people thank God for their performance, or first and foremost, I want to thank God for the opportunity, I'd like to believe it's a different God than the one that is thinking about homelessness and hunger and war, etc. But I digress. Let's talk about clasping our hands together and praying, if you're the Sixers, praying for health. We all pray for health. Who wouldn't pray for health? Without health, what are you? Health is the most important thing. Money, nope. Health. Happiness, nope. Health. A good, solid relationship with your parents, nope. Health. A wonderful, beautiful marriage, nope. Health. What's the one thing that Joel Embiid and Paul George have in common? Well, one has the most 3-pointers in franchise history, so that's good. One's got an MVP, which was Jokic's, but I digress. I think health may be the biggest issue. So I think it's really smart of Daryl, and Daryl I respect very much. Do you think Daryl will re-sign James Harden now? Get the band back together? No, Harden's going back to the Clippers. That's what the Clippers should have put in their statement. We feel so good about losing Paul George. We're so thankful that we have a little tear in our eye. So we're going to bring back James Harden for $35 million a year for 2 years. If James Harden is worth $35 million in today's NBA, then I am 6'5". I didn't even think it was the biggest news of the NBA free agency. I really didn't. I thought the biggest news was what was going on with LeBron James. We had an entire situation with Bronny, and we covered that on last week's show. But LeBron James opted out of his contract. That's not the big news. He's going to re-sign with the Lakers in a 3-year deal for $162 million because that's the max he can get. That would have been big news. But no, LeBron stood up and said, maybe it was Rich Paul. Maybe it was neither. Maybe it was Rich Paul leaking it to Shams. I think I'm going to take a pay cut. I want to leave enough room because I love the Lakers so much, and I'm so thankful that Bronny was drafted at number 55, deservedly so, and that he's going to make the team totally deservedly so. We'll start him off in the summer league where we can watch him develop and play and dominate, and I'm going to be on the court I'm not yucking on the yum of a father's son. It's amazing. But LeBron James saying, I'll take less. I'll take less. That's a good one. The Warriors decided they didn't want Chris Paul at all. Can you blame them? Chris Paul was waived by the Warriors. I wonder whether he was surprised because there was a deadline that if he hadn't been waived, they extended it. But if he hadn't been waived, he was going to get 30. Chris Paul at $30 million. People have been coming up to me, Coke. I forgot to tell you this. I forgot to tell you about the sporting class person. Remind me to tell you that story. Someone approached me on the street about the sporting class. It was a young, I'll tell you right now. I got the time if you've got the time. I've got the beer. Somebody came up. He was in his 20s, is my guess, wearing a white shirt and a solid black tie. Maybe a student, someone coming from work, a young man who came up to me and didn't know my face. I guess we got to get the YouTube out there more, but knew my voice. And I was talking while walking because that's what I do. I'm a walker and a talker. I can pretty much do anything and talk. I can sleep and talk. And he said, "Are you David Samson?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I just want to tell you," and I thought it was going to be Survivor. I thought it was going to be nothing personal. Maybe he was a father, was a Marlins fan. Who knows? No, he wanted to talk about the sporting class. And this is when I started thinking that we all are victims and guilty of stereotyping. I wasn't sure the demographics. I don't get that information for the sporting class. But if we're getting the word out to students, that's a good thing. We should be proud of ourselves. I have no idea why that just came into my head. And I have no idea what we were just talking about. Coca, could you help me, please, at 8:12 a.m. on a random Monday morning? Chris Paul, thank you. How do you, of all people, especially today, given your weekend, how do you even remember? For my side tracks, do you put a finger on the document? That'd be funny. I should do that. Chris Paul is going to go to the San Antonio Spurs. And what I was thinking about is that Greg Popovich is supposed to be a pretty good judge of character. Greg Popovich is exactly the person you'd expect to put a team around Victor Wembanyama, somebody who's going to help him develop, somebody who's going to help him in all ways. And rumors have come out about Chris Paul and the difficulty as a teammate, the difficulty sort of that teams have had with him. It, of course, all could be anecdotal. But when we're signing a free agent, we hear the rumors. It's a very small game. You know which players have a good reputation. You know which players have the bad reputation. So anything you've heard about Chris Paul, I'm going to go with is not true. Because that's the faith I have in Popovich. And that's the faith I have in the Spurs organization. Why would they bring an ant to a picnic that's developing with beautiful napkins and a tablecloth, amazing cheese and spread and a baguette? You would never bring an ant to that. And Chris Paul was supposed to be the biggest ant around. The Warriors will move forward without Chris Paul. They may move forward without Klay Thompson. It's so hard to break up with someone you've been with for so long, who you've had great success with. Sometimes people just are happy to live with their unhappiness and double down on it. They'll sign a player just because, hey, we've had him, we love you. We'll overpay. Basketball makes it hard, though. Baseball's easy. There's no salary cap. You can overpay with emotion. No problem. The overpays come often with players because salary cap and salary floor, you got to spend. It's why you read these crazy contracts and people come up to me all the time, not about the sporting class, but they do talk about the NBA deals. Can you believe that this guy got that amount? And my answer is teams have to spend. That's the beautiful thing about these salary floors. Someone's going to spend on Klay Thompson. He's going to feel wanted and loved and appreciated. Everyone will thank him for his time in Golden State. Well, each day there's going to be something that happens in the NBA now. There'll be more signings, maybe some trades, maybe not, but definitely signings. We'll cover them. We'll let you know what's happening. Paul George, welcome to Philadelphia. Do you think the Knicks and Celtics are shaking in their shoes at this troika of Maxwell and Embiid and George? No. It is Maxey. Excuse me. Thank you, Coca. I was thinking Vernon Maxwell. I don't know why I was thinking about him. Because he haunts me? Is that why? Today is July 1st. My grandfather died on July 1st. I was just thinking, Coca, in 1978. 88, 98, 08, 18. 46 years ago. Lots changed in 46 years. We like recapping the Major League Baseball season each month on the first day of the month. Sometimes the first day is on a weekend, in which case we do it maybe on the third day of the month, which is the first show of the month. So normally what I'm taught to say is tell everybody that we're going to do an MLB recap on the first show of the month. But I always like to say it's the first day. And this month I get to say both. One of the things that we do prior to each month is we give you predictions. I may not have done any transition there, Sarah, by the way. In which case, if you need, just yell into my ear to start over, and I'll give you like a 2-second silent wipe like this. It is July 1st right now, which means that we get to recap June. And one of the things that I like doing is making predictions about a month. Now, predictions are like picks. They're like wait to sees, though we don't have them in our document on davidsamsonpodcast.com. I will remind you what they were and tell you how well or badly I did. The first June prediction I had is that the Blue Jays were going to add in June and not subtract. Now, it turns out that Atkins gave the manager a vote of confidence. So there was that. That was awfully exciting. It also turns out that the Blue Jays did not do anything to deserve adding to that clubhouse. While Guerrero had a great month, the Blue Jays simply are not in the race. I still don't think they're going to sell, but they did not add. We got it wrong. For the second month in a row, I told you the Astros are going to wake up. In May, I said the Astros are going to play 600 ball. Didn't happen. In June, I said, don't you worry. The Astros are going to play 600 ball. We got it right. That's a prediction that worked out. The Astros actually had the best record in baseball. They were 17-8. They played at a 680 clip. Anybody care to guess who had the second best record in baseball in May? I'm surprised we didn't get the tweet about that from Stevie, though I think we did get a tweet. Was the tweet how exciting things are around Citi Field? How thankful he is and excited he is? It happens. Good months happen. Bad months happen. I've had 8 and 20 months. I've had 20 and 8 months, I would assume. The Mets went 16-8, got themselves back in it. So now Stevie has to add. But the Astros did play to 600 clip. Then we told you this was an absolute insane prediction. I thought that Gunnar Henderson would end the month with more home runs than Aaron Judge. And I was nailing it. Gunnar Henderson and Aaron Judge are now 1 and 2 in home runs. Judge with 31, Gunnar with 26, tied with Ohtani. But Judge won the June match 11-8. So I got that wrong. We'll get into July predictions. Right now, actually, I want to give you July predictions so you can book it. Number 1, Gunnar Henderson will have more home runs in July than Shohei Ohtani. I'm getting out of the Aaron Judge business, and I'm getting into the Shohei business. Right now, they're tied. This one will be very easy to calculate. We won't need to go game by game, Coca, because they're tied going into July. So all we have to look and see is where they are at the end of July. Henderson will have more home runs than Shohei Ohtani in July. Second, let's talk about the New York Metropolitans and the New York Yankees. There are two New York teams. Yankees have been dicey. Lost a couple series in a row. What did they do? Who did they play this weekend? I'm completely blanking. That really is unacceptable. How many different games there are that I see, and then I can't remember exactly who's playing what. And then I delay like this, and I remember that they were playing the damn Blue Jays, and they won 8-1 yesterday. I assume they won that series, although the Blue Jays won Saturday. Let's see what happened Friday. Yeah, the Yankees won 16-5. That was our pick of the day, Coca. So the Yankees finally won a series, taking 2 out of 3. No, the Blue Jays won on Thursday. They split the series. Hold on. Was it a 5-game series like AAA, like college? Let's look at Wednesday. Yankees, Blue Jays, anything? Of course, there's no 5-game series. I'm just kidding. I'm just delaying because I'm trying to think of what I was saying. Yes. Yankees have not. That means I can still say this. All right. 4-8-69. The Yankees really are scuffling. They have not won a series in as long as I can remember. They lost their 0-3-1, I believe, in their last 4 series. Did you catch that? The one, that means they split a 4-game series. Stay with me. I'm right here, not going anywhere. Well, other than Chicago. I hope no one's too close to the stage tonight because I think when I land, I'm going right to get some deep dish. Where should I go? If you're listening to this, DM me, would you please, or tweet at me at David P. Samson. Where should I get the deep dish? Somewhere near City Winery, if you don't mind. So I believe that the Yankees and Mets, the two New York teams, even though the Mets are coming off a good month, the Yankees struggled. They're both going to add in July. They will both be buyers at the deadline. The end of this month is July 30th. Strike that. The end of this month is July 31st, but July 30th is the trade deadline. We will be here covering that deadline for you. It's at 6 p.m. on the 30th. All of the movement, all of the phenomenal trades that will help nobody except one team. Because in baseball, we don't say anything like the Clippers say. Thank you so much. It's been such a great run. We made it to the wild card round each year. Yay! That was so exciting. We're so thankful. We love you. You played an average of 80 games a year. Nothing but hurt, but man, we're just thankful. The reason why the Mets have to add now is that they did not cooperate with Steve's plan to not add. So now he's going to spend money. Now, of course, he could not send money. He could not take on players, or when he gets players who are getting paid, he could ask for the money to be paid and pay with great prospects in return. Their farm system is fine, not great, not bad. It's totally average. I still think Steve Cohen will take on money. This is his moment to be right, because the way the brain works when you're an owner of a team, you made a promise to win a World Series, then you caveat it by saying, oh, this is much harder than we thought. And then your team has one good month and you think, yeah, we got this. We can do it. But there's another team in the American League that's going to add that's also part of my July predictions. The Orioles. Here's why the new owner of the Orioles is going to add. Because there's a new owner of the Orioles. And the Orioles and the Yankees are fighting it out to win the American League East. The loser will still be a wild card. They're both going to make the playoffs, barring an unseemly collapse by the Yankees. The Orioles are a better team than the Yankees. Judge is the best player on either team, but the Orioles are a better, deeper team. Better, deeper farm system. But they've got a new owner. And when the new owner opens his phone in July, let's just say he opens his phone on July 1st, the way I am. And let's say he decides that he wants to look at the standings and he says, wow, we're tied with the Yankees. Except we're slightly ahead because we're 53-31 and they're 54-32. So percentage points ahead. We have a chance. Do you think the new owner's not going to take advantage of that? I'm looking for the Orioles to add significantly. So July predictions. Mets add, Yankees add, Orioles add. Henderson over Ohtani in home runs. Can I add one prediction, please, that I don't have in the document, if you don't mind? I'm going to just add it, if you don't mind. Here's what we're adding. White Sox, Marlins, sell. I know, listen, that's major. That's exciting. That I have now added value to you on a random Monday morning in a way that you will not find over on the 4-letter network. No chance. Let's talk about the top storylines of June, if that's okay. I'm going to start with Paul Skenes. Did you watch him pitch yesterday? I predicted in a way to see that he'd have an ERA over 3. His current ERA is approximately 2.06. The guy has 9 starts. He hasn't left one start with a deficit. He's given his team a tie or a lead in all 9 starts. The month he just had, domination. 2-0 with the 178, 40K, and 5 walks. Can you imagine that in a month? I was looking at his slinker. I was looking at his fastball. Here's the reason why he's so hard to hit. Now, he's got a nice looking lower body, but the reason that he's so hard to hit, it's not velocity. It's actually his ball, and it's not sticky stuff. It's not Edwin Diaz type stuff. His ball and the movement on it all comes from the same exact release point, which means as a hitter, you're looking and you're saying, oh, that's his release point. Here comes the four-seamer. Let me jack up my swing. I'm going to start right now because he's going to throw 100. So I'm starting right now. Crikeys. It's cutting away from me. It's sliding away from me. It's sunk away from me. Now I'm swinging at a place where I expect the ball to be. It's not there. It's way lower. It's moving in a way that makes your head spin if you're a hitter, which means you can ambush and guess right. Kellenic yesterday, leading off the game. Ambushes. That's the only way you can get runs off this guy. An ambush is what we tell our players to do if your bat's getting slower or if the pitcher just has too much velocity for you to handle. Just sit dead red, sit ambush. You may look silly, no doubt about it. You're going to be done swinging Bugs Bunny style 3 straight times if the guy throws a slider. But if he happens to throw a fastball and you close your eyes and it barrels, you got a shot. His domination is a storyline, and we're talking about All-Star Game, and there's been a lot of media outlets. I think Ken Rosenthal has been pretty vocal about this, that he deserves to be in Arlington and that we ought to have that type of story. It's a huge story. That is not how baseball and the Players Association and managers, that is not how All-Star games are chosen. It's not based on what is in the best interest of the game. I think it should be, but it's not. I agree with you, Ken. There's too much money involved, even though it's a pittance, but for Skenes at the minimum, it's meaningful. The second big story that attracted my attention continues to be injuries. Bryce Harper is going to miss the All-Star game in Arlington. They haven't announced it yet, but I promise you he will not be playing in the All-Star game. He hurt his hamstring. I told you that before they even put him on the IL. The Phillies put Schwarber and Harper on. Each day, every other day, every third day, we read another article, another transaction, another pitcher with Tommy John. It feels like injuries are a part of all sports. We talk about Paul George and injuries and Kawhi Leonard and load management and my knee hurts, my hip hurts, arms, elbows, knees, toes, straight, let the boat pull you up. All of those things we talk about. So why are injuries in my head? Because I'm thinking that we're about to hit a critical point. Not a point of inflection, not that critical, but a critical point where owners are going to decide that all of these sports teams they own, all of these contracts they're handing out, all of the failures that they're having, and don't ever misunderstand what the Clippers told you about Paul George is thinking that's really what the Clippers think. Believe me, that's not what they think in the front office. Paul George was a failure in LA. Nothing but a failure. So forget the PR spin and all that stuff. The thing about injuries is that it's worse than bad performance. Bad performance is when we overpay a player. The player plays and the player stinks, and you say to yourself, oh my God, we got to Garcia him. We have no choice. We got to designate the guy. We got to release him. We got to not play him. We got to do something because he's so bad. When a player's injured, your mentality is, oh, all we need, just once he comes back from injury, we're going to be firing all cylinders. It'll be the team that we envisioned during the offseason that we put together on our chalkboard, old reference. Everything is going to be great. Injuries allow for rationalizations. Bad performance does not. The thing is, with all the injuries happening right now across all sports, really, it seems pretty insane to me that you would ever do an allocation that you felt was not marked to market, that you would ever sign a player that you felt was an overpay. Because even with a perfect track record, the injuries that players are sustaining, it's just way more often, way more severe, and they're out for way longer. The storyline that I want you to watch over July is, as the deadline approaches, who's getting hurt and which teams are hitting the panic button because of a player getting hurt on their contending team. I've hit that button. Worked one time, didn't work 16 times. The other top storyline this month has to be the Astros. For all of you people who counted them out, they're now 3.5 games back of the Mariners to win the division. They're 3.5 games back at the final wild card spot. For all of you who are saying, that's it, those cheating bastages, they're done. Finally, dynasty over. For all the people who said all those pitching injuries, they will not be able, we shall not overcome. Guess what? They're overcoming. The top storyline in June was the fact that the Astros are back in the playoff picture. Well, that's our recap. We'll do it again at the end of this month. I promise you that. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to review a movie that just came out. And then we're going to talk about something that happened in Milwaukee that kept me awake at night for 18 seasons. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Happy Monday. Getting ready to get to Chicago. If you are in the Chicago area, the Milwaukee area, anybody? If you're with the Cubs, you have a day off today. Come on to the City Winery tonight. I will be there from 7:30. The show will start soon after 7:30. Go for an hour and a half. You will get your money's worth. I promise you. There's no money back guarantee, but I believe that you will. Thank you for being a part of our show. We are in the second half of the year. Unbelievable. We're halfway done with 2024 already. I watched a movie called Ezra, directed by Tony Goldwyn, starring Bobby Cannavale and his wife, Rose Byrne, Robert De Niro, so I'm sure Adnan's watched it, and starring a young man with neurological deficiencies. I used to just say with autism. I don't think I'm allowed to say that anymore. And it is a movie about a young boy and his father, and what the father will do to protect him, to save him, to help him, to father him, to parent him. He is a comedian. He plays a comedian in the movie, the father does. And for whatever reason, Jimmy Kimmel is offering him the possibility of being on Jimmy Kimmel, and his agent, Whoopi Goldberg, it's almost like Tony Goldwyn, the director, said, hey, we were in Ghosts together. Would you mind at all being in my movie? It's not a bad movie. I wouldn't call it the best movie I've seen all year. It is strange to see De Niro in the parts that he plays and how it works with him now, only because I was 1 or 2 weeks removed from watching Goodfellas as part of reviewing my top 100. So it just struck me a bit. Dealing with a child with autism, dealing with a child with any deficiency, any disability of any kind, you're dealing with generally mean kids, because kids are mean to begin with. Then you're trying to figure out what's best to do for your child, because all you want is for your child to be normal, and no one knows what normal means because nobody's normal. But as a parent, you ask for health and you ask, just fit in, please. It'll be better for you. That used to be the reason why old-fashioned parents didn't want their kids in any way to be anything other than heterosexual. And they would always say, because we don't want life to be hard for you. It's hard enough. We don't want it to be harder. This is a movie about what it is to have a hard life. And this is not about money. This is not about your living situation. This is about what it is to have a child with special needs, what it is to be a parent who's struggling to make ends meet, to figure it out, and the commitment. Ezra, it's worth watching. One of the upsides of not being the president of a team anymore, and there are many upsides, many. One of the great upsides is I don't spend 1 minute thinking about what happens if my stadium falls apart and people get hurt. I'm sorry. I'd like to tell you that I worry about all of you who go to games and all of you who love sporting events, but I don't. I'd like to tell you that in my head, I'm saying, God, I hope the escalator doesn't break at Miller Park, because that would be a nightmare for my brethren in Milwaukee. But I don't. There was a malfunction of the escalator yesterday, and it's not called Miller Park anymore, but I call it Miller Park like I still call Bank One Ballpark or Pac Bell. I'm sorry. You're not paying me, you sponsors. I don't need to refer to it by that name. Marlins Park. Marlins Park. So there was a game at American Family Field yesterday, and people were leaving and getting on the escalator. We have a system when we would run a stadium. It was a pretty simple thing. We're doing safety checks at all times. We're checking elevators, escalators. Why am I checking those two things? I didn't care as much about the slippery spills because generally beer is sticky. But the reason I cared about mechanical things that carried fans is that I was always concerned, as a New Yorker, as a Jewish New Yorker, as a man who is extremely large hypochondriac. I am worrying nonstop. That's what I do. Occupational hazard. When an elevator would break or an escalator would break, if there's anyone in the elevator and they're stuck in the elevator, that's a problem. If the escalator breaks and it goes too fast, goes too slow, all of a sudden you've got to pile up. Don't tell me you don't think about it, because you do when you're on an escalator. Aren't you always looking around to see how close the person is behind you and in front of you? And it's not a germ thing. It's say, hey, if this escalator all of a sudden stops, I want to make sure that I'm not going to be bowled over by the man behind me or woman behind me. And frankly, with my suitcase in the airport, I'm going to put it in such a way that should the escalator stop or go very, very quickly, I'm going to have a hold of my suitcase because I don't want it to hurt anybody. Unless that's just me. Well, it happened yesterday. 11 people were hurt. EMS was called. It's a nightmare. What happens now? The escalator gets shut down. The inspectors come back. Can't get open. But we used to inspect those all the time. Stuff just happens. I'm happy to say it never happened on my watch, but stuff just happens. What they're saying is too many people were on the escalator, which led me to part 2 of my nightmare. All of the game day employees that you run into when you go to a game, ushers, security, concessionaires, people directing you into and out of parking lots, they're called game day employees. By definition, they get hired to work game days. Now, it is true that a bunch of them get hired for every game, but it's not a contract. Then there's a training that happens. You meet with the employees, you talk about things that are going on. One thing that you say is, you're going to be assigned to the top of the escalator. We're going to make sure that we manage the number of people on the escalator. We don't want to overcrowd it, so you got to pay attention. Do you have any experience with the big slides at water amusement parks where there's a lifeguard at the top who's supposed to be paying attention, likely smoking a doobie, but supposed to be paying attention, saying, hey, wait, okay, you're clear. Wait, go. You've seen that. We've all seen that. That's what you're supposed to have at the top of escalators. It's supposed to be manned I assume that's not the expression I'm allowed to use anymore. It's supposed to be personed. You didn't put that on your list to me, Coca. TICS? We do a list, ticks. Things I can't say. Most of them I wouldn't say anyway. But manning an elevator? I think I would still say that. What's going to happen now if you're the Brewers? What's your plan? What do you do? Well, you could release a statement, which they did. They said our on-site physician and EMS were on the scene immediately, and we are appreciative of their quick response. Now, I should mention, that's their job. There's literally one thing you got to do when your EMS is assigned to a game. Be ready to respond quickly. Try to not be on your phone. Try not to be screwing around. Try not to use the facilities all at once. And be ready when the call comes in. Wow, we've got a situation in the ballpark. The team doctor, ready. Our team doctors were always ready. God bless you, Dr. Cannell and Dr. Kaplan. Whatever we needed. Hey, we got a heart attack in section 469. No problem. They're always in touch. Even before phones, my former father-in-law would carry around a rotary phone and plug it into his seat. That's how doctors were kept in touch during those days prior to cell phones. Something happened in the upper deck. Hey, go take care of it. We got a situation. Complimenting the EMS for being on the scene immediately. Here's a funny part of this. They start on the scene. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be lawyers. There's going to be extra people assigned to games. And now every escalator will be again inspected by this county and the city. I'm sorry for the people who got injured, but man, is that a nightmare. Nothing personal pick of the day. We finally had an undefeated weekend. We had the Yankees beating the Blue Jays Friday. They did. And happy Patrick Corbin Day. Are you guys on the Patrick Corbin bandwagon yet? The Rays beat him 5-0. Our pick tonight. Sorry, although this may guarantee a Mets win. But we're going with Gore. If you haven't watched Gore pitch for the Nats, you should check him out. Young. The Nats are actually better than 2 or 3 teams in their division with players you've never heard of. You probably can't name 2 players on the Washington Nationals. That's okay. That's a very crowded club. But we are taking Gore minus 105 over the hot Mets. Will they have a hot July? Well, I don't think it'll start today. I loved when our players were in the home run derby. When we hosted the All-Star game in 2017, we had Justin Bour, we had Stanton. Just loved it. Stanton won the home run derby in 16. He was defending in 17. We thought he could win it back-to-back in front of his fans. Bour, I believe, now you're really testing my memory, I believe Bour lost in the first round to Judge, the eventual winner, and it was an amazing round. Home run derby is something that stresses out the commissioner's office. We would get calls from them starting 6 to 8 weeks in advance. Hey, we're looking at this player, that player. What do you think? I was always in. Baseball operations people were always out because of the ridiculous thought that the player gets hurt, the player slumps, the player changes his swing, the player gets too tired. It's all a bunch of horse hockey. But the players would blame their slumps on the home run derby. It's like saying you're not going to shoot threes well because you're in the three-point contest during the NBA All-Star weekend. Too many shots. My wrist hurts so badly when I flex it. It's killing me. No wonder I'm only shooting 69% from the free throw line. It's a wrist issue. MLB finally decided this year, all right, we're going to tweak it. They're getting a little cocky with their tweaks. The whole pitch clock thing, very positive. Have you ever seen more press releases from Major League Baseball about attendance, about game time? They're quite excited. Quite excited as they should be. The sport's better. I told you, I gave flowers to the commissioner, Rob Manfred. How could you not? For spearheading this pitch clock revolution, increasing and quickening the pace of games. Love it. Love it. The home run derby tweaks have nothing to do with the commissioner. The home run derby tweaks have nothing to do with the broadcaster. The home run tweaks and of course they're not going to tell you this, they all come from the union. New rules this year, 40 pitches, that's it. You get one timeout in 3 minutes in the first round in the semis, but you get 40 pitches. So you better have a good BP pitcher, because if they don't lay it in where you like it, you can't just sit there and take it. Boring. Home run derby lasts too long. You better be swinging. Of course, after the 3 minutes, they're going to give you 3 bonus outs. That's back to what the original rules were, where every swing is either a home run or an out. If it's not a home run, it's out. If you don't take the pitch, out. That's what I would like, but they made it every swing is either a home run or an out. I wanted every pitch is either a home run or an out, because I wanted real pressure on the BP pitcher, because I didn't want BP pitchers. I was the one who stood up and said, put the pitching machines out there and throw 85, 92 right down the middle where the people want it. That's exciting to me. It's like, we don't need to feed someone in a 3-point contest. Put the balls on a damn rack. Grab them, shoot them. What would be wrong with a great pitching machine that does a nice fastball, a BP fastball? We're not looking at batting practice. We could use a pitching machine for batting practice, but the coaches like throwing batting practice. It doesn't simulate game time. They're throwing 60. Set it to 60. Set it to 70. If you put a time on each round, it doesn't matter. It's not like it swings, outs, etc. The finals, of course, are only going to be 2 minutes because the players get tired. 3 minutes in the first round, 3 minutes in the semis, 2 minutes in the finals, and only 27 pitches. Why are they doing it that way? Because what players have said is they get super duper tired by the end of the final round. Sometimes even by the end of the second round. If you really want to deal with changes to the home run derby, get rid of the kids. And I'm saying that totally hypocritically, and let me tell you why. Because my son in 2017, as a 14-year-old, because I had great connections, president of the team, hosting the All-Star game, nepotism, hell yeah, he was on the field shagging during the home run derby. And he played baseball. Very, very good player. This close to being a pro. He was great. He had fun. He actually was. Good arm. Good everything. Love you, man. No, that's too campy. I love you, son. I do love him. He's now 21. I got a call, side note, Coke, I got a call from a child of a player of ours who we won the World Series with. The child was born during the World Series run, like my son. The child's 21, like my son, who just turned 21 as well. That's really staggering to me. Anyway, so he's shagging flies, and the one thing we said to him is, just please, the balls come way faster. And he grew up around baseball. He was in baseball his whole life. But when a hitter hits a ball, it's a lot different than Little League or junior varsity or varsity high school baseball. Totally different. And yet we have kids out there getting bonked. Now, of course, they sign waivers and releases and limits of liability, but it made me insane. I can't tell you how happy I was when All-Star Week ended in Miami. I didn't have to worry about terrorist attacks anymore. I didn't have to worry about escalators, elevators. When the home run derby ended, I didn't have to worry about kids getting donked. But rest assured, there will be kids on the field during the home run derby. Now, why do you think that is? Because the majority of kids are not through connections and nepotism. The majority are done through programs, through sponsors. Because the home run derby is sponsored. Because everything gets sponsored. And the sponsors want to look cool in front of their departments, in front of their buyers, their sellers. And so they assign different kids. MLB is not going to change that because it's just business. Good luck out there. Happy July 1st. See you in Shottown. This is nothing personal.